Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really digging into a question that I know weighs on many of us. How do we genuinely move past that timid feeling? That anxiety that holds us back from trying new things, from learning, and from seizing opportunities, really, in both life and work. We've pulled together some fascinating materials, and our goal for this deep dive is, well, to uncover some truly actionable insights for you. We're talking concrete techniques to reduce that fear and boost your courage. The idea is to help you gain more experience, learn more, and just make greater progress. Our main source today is the book Get Better at Anything by Scott H. Young. He's an author really renowned for his profound study of learning.
Oh, yeah, Scott H. Young. And when we talk about him, it's not just theory. His own background is pretty incredible. I mean, completing an MIT degree in just 1 year. That's amazing. And then becoming fluent in 4 languages in months, even professional art in 30 days. He really does walk the talk. And the core of his work, fundamentally, it explores how we learn. But what's so interesting here, and why we're talking about fear, is that even if we grasp the technical side of learning, there's often this big emotional barrier. A barrier that just stands right in our way. And that barrier is fear. So let's unpack that a bit.
Okay, so let's start with something really counterintuitive. Imagine pre-World War II London. People are terrified, expecting devastating bombings. But what if I told you that people's mental distress actually decreased once the attacks began? Sounds completely backwards, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. And it gives us this profound psychological insight into how we deal with fear. Picture it. Before the war, just immense anxiety. During all of World War I, London saw, about 300 tons of bombs total? But for WWII, the predictions were just terrifying. They were talking 3,500 tons on the first day alone, with hundreds more expected after that. The dread was palpable. People imagined utter destruction, hundreds of thousands dead. And yet, here's the twist. London psychiatrists observed this striking paradox. Before the war actually started, mental health issues, the mental casualties, were apparently 3 times higher than physical ones. But during the conflict, they lessened. The psychology seems to be this. Before the event, people were just consumed by the unknown, by these catastrophic scenarios their minds cooked up. But once reality hit, people pulled together. The government, private sector, military, aid groups, everyone mobilized. They were managing the situation, supporting each other. So the focus shifted,
Yeah.
from panic and imagination to dealing with the present moment, solving problems together.
Right, and it's not just wartime London, is it? Studies of other disasters, big floods, earthquakes, tornadoes, they show a similar pattern. People rarely just lose control when the actual event hits. We saw it here during the big Bangkok floods, right? And even remember the start of COVID. There was initial panic, sure, but then communities quickly shifted to helping each other out, mutual aid.
It really boils down to this core psychological principle. Fear often fades, sometimes dramatically, when we actually confront the real thing. And what's more, facing something you fear and realizing it didn't actually harm you, that can significantly reduce your fear of similar things later on. It rewrites the script in your head,
Yeah.
creates new, more positive memories that override the old anxieties.
Okay, so hearing that story about London, it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? For you listening, how might you be holding yourself back? Are you stuck imagining the worst instead of just taking that first step to face the actual reality? To really tackle that, though, we probably need to understand where these fears even come from in the first place.
Absolutely. And the source, it points to 2 main origins for fear. The first one is pretty straightforward. Fear born from a painful past experience. It leaves, you could say, a scar, right? A bad memory. Maybe you dealt with a really harsh person once or felt unsafe somewhere quiet and isolated. But here's the crucial bit. Past negative experiences don't automatically predict the future. Just because one person was unkind doesn't mean the next one will be. Then there's the second origin, which is quite interesting. This is fear that pops up without any direct personal experience. It often comes from warnings, stories you've heard from other people, things like, oh, be careful in that country, or this office is super competitive, or even silly stuff like that house is haunted. This kind of fear is, well, it's tricky because it often stops you before you even try anything just based on what someone else said. And this connects to what psychologists call the two-factor theory for irrational fear. Basically, the fear sticks around mainly because we avoid the thing we're afraid of. You feel the threat, your instinct is to run or avoid, and because you avoid it, you never actually find out if it's as bad as you imagine. You get stuck in that fear loop.
Yeah, I can see that. Take the fear of speaking English with foreigners. It's pretty common. If you always dodge those situations, you never learn if you can actually communicate, even with mistakes. You just keep reinforcing the fear. But if you're sort of forced into it, or you just decide to try, you might discover, hey, I can get my point across, maybe not perfectly, but it works. And that success, even a small one, builds confidence. And then you start actually developing the skill. So for you listening, take a moment to think. What's the root of your fear? Is it something that actually happened to you? Or is it maybe something you've only heard about? Just understanding that origin, that's really the first step to taking its power away.
Okay, so now let's talk about a plan, like a dynamic battle plan for building courage. Because, fear immunity isn't permanent. Just like fear goes down when you face it, it can definitely creep back if you stop. Like the English speaking example again. You might get confident after practicing, but if you stop for ages, that fear might pop right back up next time you need to speak. It needs maintenance. So the source lays out three key actions to really work with your fear, not just against it. First, face it more often. Simple but critical. Regular exposure is key. Second, face it in varied situations. Don't just practice in the exact same safe context. Change the place, the people, the specific task. This helps generalize your courage. And third, review regularly. Afterwards, think about it. Why was I scared? What helped? What didn't? How can I adjust next time? This self-reflection is vital for refining how you manage fear.
I can definitely relate to that idea of confronting challenges. I remember driving in Georgia, the country, not the state. And the roads there are notoriously difficult. I mean, thousands of hairpin curves, driving like 8 hours straight one day. It was intense. But pushing through that, it wasn't about suddenly becoming fearless. It was more about developing that attitude of, okay, I'm scared, but I'm going to try this anyway. And when you get through it, there's this real sense of accomplishment. The next challenge just feels a bit less daunting.
That's a perfect illustration. Facing these just right levels of fear, not overwhelming, but challenging it, has huge benefits. It shows you the situation probably isn't as dangerous as you built it up to be. It proves you can overcome it. And crucially, it builds mental strength and confidence for whatever comes next. This applies to us as adults, sure, but also think about parents helping kids face new or slightly scary things. It builds their resilience too. History is full of examples too. Goethe, the famous German poet, apparently conquered his fear of heights by repeatedly standing on narrow church ledges. Kept doing it until climbing mountains didn't faze him. And then there's that timeless advice from a Shaolin monk: where you fear, go there. Simple, but incredibly powerful. It's also worth mentioning, relaxation techniques like deep breathing. They can definitely help manage the physical symptoms of fear, the racing heart, the shaky hands. But the research often suggests that direct confrontation is actually more effective for reducing the fear itself, sometimes even while you're still feeling stressed. Think about exposure therapy for phobias, like being in a room with a dog if you have a dog phobia, or even intensely visualizing the worst case scenario to kind of process it. The idea is to engage directly.
So it's not just about calming down physically. It's about actually engaging with the thing causing the fear.
Precisely. And this ties into how our brain is wired. You have the rational part, your frontal lobe, which can understand the fear. You can analyze it. Oh, that bad experience caused this. But understanding alone often isn't enough, because it's the automatic emotional part, the midbrain, the amygdala, that triggers that instant gut level fear response. So you need direct experience to actually recalibrate that automatic response, to teach the emotional brain that it's okay.
Right. So to really dial down fear, you actually have to put yourself in the situation you fear. You need to blend that intellectual understanding with real world action. You can't just think your way out of fear. You have to do your way out of it.
And this leads us directly to how fear messes with our learning. It actively hinders it in a couple of really important ways. First, as we mentioned, avoidance. If you fear something, you avoid it. Simple. But that means you never attempt the task, so you never develop the skill. Fear driving. You avoid driving. Result: you never get better at driving. You stay stuck. Second, fear creates anxiety. And that anxiety basically hijacks your mental energy. Instead of focusing on learning the skill or solving the problem, your mind is just spinning, worrying about what ifs. This makes it incredibly hard to focus and actually improve.
So the solution seems clear, if not easy: confrontation. It's the most direct path. If you fear something, move toward it. If you're doing something, do it. But okay, for someone feeling genuinely paralyzed by fear, just saying do it can feel overwhelming, impossible even. How do you start? How do you break that paralysis without getting totally swamped?
That's a really important question. And the advice is start small. Don't try to jump in the deep end immediately. Think small bullets, not a cannonball. So if you fear public speaking, maybe speaking to 100 people is terrifying. Don't start there. Start by presenting to just 5 colleagues. then maybe 10. These low-risk steps build confidence and skills bit by bit. They make the next step feel manageable, not terrifying. And this whole process, it gradually shifts you. You change from someone who avoids problems into someone who confronts them. It's a fundamental change in mindset and behavior. You can also work on reframing the fear itself. Instead of thinking traveling alone is inherently dangerous, try seeing your reaction to fear as your personal response to uncertainty. This puts you back in control. It lets you test the waters, normalize what feels scary, because you recognize it's about your perception, not necessarily objective reality.
That shift in perspective is powerful. Again, let's loop back to that WWI example. It's extreme, I know. But if people could overcome that level of panic, that intense fear, if they could actually function better during the crisis than before it, truly we can manage our everyday fears, right? The principle holds true, regardless of the scale.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's get really practical now. Concrete strategies for becoming that fearless learner, remembering that real learning happens through experience. First strategy, create a fear hierarchy. If a situation feels like one big, scary blob, break it down. Take public speaking again. What specifically are you afraid of? Shaky legs, fumbling the intro, your jokes falling flat, talking nonsense. List every single specific fear. Just breaking it down like this makes it feel less overwhelming. You can evaluate each part rationally, and you might find some of those sub-fears just kind of evaporate when you look at them closely. Or you can practice tackling them one by one. Second, stop soft-pedaling your avoidance. We all do it, right? Telling ourselves, oh, it'll be okay, as a way to avoid actually facing the thing. Instead, try noticing and maybe even journaling your specific avoidance behaviors. Are you turning down projects, constantly needing reassurance, avoiding eye contact? Just acknowledge these patterns. Confronting the fear doesn't mean it will go perfectly, but it proves you can survive the imperfections. And often, you learn the reality is way less scary than what you imagined. Third strategy. Face fear with others. Use group support. Think back to that WWII example again. Why did fear decrease? Partly because people work together. Firefighters, rescuers, nurses, they were part of a team, a unit. That shared experience, that support, it buffered the mental impact. Knowing you're not alone makes a huge difference. So when you're facing something scary, actively seek support. Find a team, a mentor, even just a friend, preparing a presentation. Ask colleagues to listen and give feedback. Be your backup. It changes the internal story from, I can't do this alone, to, okay, who can help me navigate this? That reframing is so important, isn't it? From I can't to how can we tackle this? It makes it collaborative instead of just a personal burden. Exactly. And the final key strategy, or maybe understanding, is to differentiate courage from fearlessness. They are not the same thing. Courage is acting despite feeling fear. It's not about not feeling fear at all. Remember, fear shows up in three ways. Physically, racing heart, sweating. Mentally, negative thoughts, worries. And behaviorally, avoidance. The crucial insight is that people absolutely can and do act even when they feel deeply afraid. Don't wait until you feel fearless, because that might never happen. Also, remember that courage isn't like a general superpower. Being brave in public speaking doesn't mean you won't be terrified of bungee jumping. This tells us we need varied practice across different kinds of challenges to build overall resilience. Think of courage as a skill you train, not a fixed trait you either have or don't. And here's something reassuring. People consistently overestimate how scared they'll be and underestimate their ability to cope. When you actually face the fear, you often discover inner strengths and quick thinking you didn't even know you had. So, to recap the fear-conquering process, start by believing courage is a skill you can build. Analyze your specific fears intellectually. Then, crucially, practice facing them in real, maybe controlled, situations. Start small if needed. And definitely lean on group support. This cycle builds new, positive experiences and memories that gradually overwrite the old fears. And what's really powerful about this is that overcoming fear isn't just about feeling better or being braver. It's actually a foundational step to mastering anything new, which leads us perfectly into the broader science of how we truly learn and develop expertise, especially in today's world. Precisely. Because once you can manage the fear, you unlock the door to real learning. The source identifies three essential steps to truly master something. First, seeing examples. You need to learn from those who are already skilled, watch the masters, understand their techniques. Second, and this is absolutely crucial, real practice. You have to put the theory into action. Get your hands dirty. You can't just read about it. And third, feedback and critique. You need honest assessments to see your mistakes and figure out how to improve. If you can't accept feedback or you avoid it, your growth just stalls. That point about real practice. There's a striking historical example. Pilot training back in 1916 with a Major Robert Smithberry. Before he came along, the situation was appalling. Apparently, 1 in 3 British student pilots died during training. Why?
Because they mostly learn theory. Their practical experience was literally clinging to the wing struts of a plane flown by an instructor, just watching. Imagine learning to fly like that.
It's incredible, isn't it? Smith-Berry's revolution was, in hindsight, simple but profound. He introduced planes with dual controls, he slashed the theory lessons, and he prioritized actual flight time in the cockpit. Students were flying, with guidance from day one. The results, astounding. Accidents during training dropped dramatically from around 10% down to just 3%. Survival rates shot up. It's undeniable proof. Practical, hands-on experience trumps pure theory.
It really makes you pause and think about education today, doesn't it? How much of our learning is still kind of like learning to fly without ever flying? The real world, whether it's a new job, a complex project, or even a personal skill, it demands application, not just book smarts.
And that real-world application is rarely neat and tidy like a textbook problem. Consider another aviation example, sadly a tragic one. The Dutch KLM plane crash in Tenerife, 1977. Thick fog. The pilot was cleared for takeoff, but critically missed or misunderstood a later radio message saying essentially, "Hold on, another plane is still on the runway." That miscommunication led to a horrific collision, killing 583 people. The key takeaway wasn't just about individual pilot skill, though that mattered. It sparked a revolution in aviation training, focusing heavily on teamwork, clear communication, CRM crew resource management. It acknowledged that expertise isn't just technical skill in isolation, it's also about navigating complex social dynamics, hierarchies, communication under pressure, things you don't learn just from a manual. Think of Malcolm Gladwell's points about Korean Air, where cultural deference sometimes prevented career pilots challenging captains. We see a similar shift, actually, in the world of high-stakes poker. Traditional poker was all about reading people, the tells, intuition, gut feelings. But modern online poker, there are no physical tells. It's become heavily data-driven. The new champions are often more like mathematicians. They're analyzing betting patterns, player statistics, probabilities using data, not just intuition, which leads to a pretty bold conclusion in the source material. It basically argues that when it comes to predicting outcomes or making optimal decisions, data wins every time over even the most seasoned expert intuition. Think of Daniel Kahneman's famous Linda problem. Linda's described as single, outspoken, bright, a philosophy major concerned with social justice, anti-nuclear activist. Is it more probable she's a bank teller or a bank teller and active in the feminist movement? Most people choose the second option, even though statistically it's less probable. We combine information based on narrative coherence, not pure probability. Data doesn't make that mistake.
Wow, okay, data wins every time. That's quite a statement. So if AI and computers can analyze data and spit out the correct answers better and faster than we can, what's left for humans? What's our unique value?
It's a critical question, and the answer provided by the source is clear. Soft skills and social skills. Our ability to collaborate, to work effectively in teams, to negotiate, to manage complex human interactions, to build rapport, to lead, to persuade. These are deeply human skills that data alone can't replicate. It also includes that hard-earned, often hard-to-explain common sense or tacit knowledge that comes from deep, real-world experience, like a master chef just knowing the flavor balance is right, or an experienced mechanic diagnosing an engine problem by sound. It's complex, nuanced expertise built over time. But there's a common barrier here, isn't there? Often bosses or seniors might hesitate to give juniors real-world experience, thinking tasks are too complex or the risks too high. But the truth is, supervised, guided real-world application leads to much, much faster and deeper learning than just sticking to theory or simulations. So how do you actually cultivate that real-world expertise, that ability to thrive beyond the textbook? The source offers three key understandings. One, understand your profession's true pathway. Don't just rely on the official org chart or curriculum. Know the real conditions, the unwritten rules, the critical experiences needed for advancement. Think of a surgeon's residency or a military officer's career path. They involve specific, sequential, real-world trials. Two, differentiate real ability from demonstrated ability. Education often focuses on grades, tests demonstrating knowledge about something. Real ability is performing effectively under pressure in actual situations. Focus on building and proving that real-world competence. And three, learn the group's culture. Expertise isn't just about skills. It's about fitting in, understanding the jargon, the norms, being part of the tribe. Whether it's how scientists pronounce a specific term or the way traders communicate on a floor, immerse yourself, ask questions, become a true insider. And woven through all of this is the absolute necessity of continuous improvement, learning from your mistakes, both big and small, and always seeking and being open to feedback.
Okay, so let's tie this all back together. We started with fear. Unaddressed fear stops us from getting that crucial direct experience. And in a world increasingly driven by AI and data, Lacking that direct experience and the social skills that come with it puts you at a real disadvantage.
That's exactly it. Direct experience is where the magic happens. It forces you to encounter problems, nuances, and complexities that textbooks just can't capture. It builds those vital social skills, negotiation, collaboration, reading situations, and it develops the quick adaptive thinking you need when things don't go according to plan, which they rarely do in the real world. It cultivates that intuition, that common sense.
So maybe here's a final thought to leave you with. In an era where technology can give us the correct answer almost instantly, what truly makes us valuable, truly human? Perhaps it's precisely our ability to tackle the problems not in the textbook, to think creatively, to navigate ambiguity, and yes, to act courageously even when we feel afraid. And all of that seems to be nurtured through real, messy, sometimes scary, but ultimately invaluable experience. We really encourage you to reflect on your own journey. How are you confronting fears? How are you embracing real-world learning? For yourself, and maybe for how you guide the next generation too. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive today.